Hi everybody, I'm Charlie Reindress, and welcome to Stompin' Tom Remembered. It's our very last episode of Stompin' Tom Remembered. I just had a shower. I realized my hair is kind of flat, but I'm not about to try to play. I have a habit when I do these online shows of playing with my hair a little too much. Anyway, so I'm Charlie Reindress, as I said. I am the author of a biography of Stompin' Tom called Stompin' Tom Connors, The Myth and the Man. We went back and forth on the title a number of times, so every now and then I have to check to make sure that I've got the title right. But it is called Stompin' Tom Connors, The Myth and the Man. And the book came out just over a year ago. And then in the spring, we were planning a big tour of Ontario. And of course, COVID hit and we had to cancel our tour. I was actually going to tour with Duncan Fremlin of Whiskey Jack. He's with us tonight. And the tour got canceled. So we waited a few months, and then instead of doing the tour, we decided we'd go online, and it's been great because actually I think we've reached more people than I ever would have going to. We were going to go to little Legion halls in small towns and stuff, but it would have been nice to see people in person. But this has worked out well. So anyway, this is episode 6. I created a Facebook page named after the book. It's called Stompin' Tom Connors, The Myth and the Man. And there I share interviews and it's just things I found while I was doing the research. Sometimes it'll be clips of Tom or a story, maybe a bit I cut from the book. And although the interview part of this project is done, I will keep posting stuff there because there are a lot of people following the page and a lot of people like Stompin' Tom. So anyway, I'm excited to be doing that. And I'm excited to be here for our final show. I'm coming to you from Amherst, Nova Scotia. And every week I interview someone who knew and or worked with Tom and do a little reading from the book, and we have some music usually. And Tom used to say when he was on stage, in case you thought you were coming to see a concert tonight, you were wrong. You came to a party. And Duncan Fremlin, who I just mentioned a minute ago, said a show with Tom was like a show in his kitchen, and the people in the audience were the guests at his house. So I welcome you to my kitchen. That's why I do the show from my kitchen every week, because Tom liked a kitchen party. But the main point of the book, part of the reason I called it The Myth and the Man was because Tom was great at mythologizing characters, both made up, like Bud the Spud was one he invented, but also real people. Joe Mufferaw was based on a real person. But the character of Stompin' Tom was also a little bit of a creation. So we try with these interviews to get to the man behind Stompin' Tom Connors. We try to get to Tom Connors, the man behind Stompin' Tom. So over the last 5 weeks, I think I've learned a lot about Tom, and I'm excited to be doing our final show. Duncan Fremlin, as I mentioned, he was my first guest on this show back when I started a few weeks ago. He's back tonight because I didn't finish talking to him, and there were some more stories that we wanted to share. But tonight's show, because it's the last one, it's going to be a little different. We're going to have a number of guests tonight. What I want to talk about, I kind of want to focus on the legacy of Stompin' Tom Connors. Like since Tom passed away, how has his music continued to affect people? And so Duncan is really relevant to that conversation because he wrote his own book about Tom called My Good Times with Stompin' Tom, but also with his band Whiskey Jack, he tours a show called Stories and Songs of Stompin' Tom. But my other guests tonight, I'm really excited. I also have Chad Matthews with us. And Chad, a lot of you will know that there's the Stompin' Tom Connors Center in Skinner's Pond, and Chad is there, and he's a singer-songwriter based in PEI, but he's been there performing in their dinner theaters as Tom. So, and he also does a Tom tribute show. So we're going to be talking to him about that. And as well, there's a Nova Scotia duo featuring my partner, as a matter of fact, Heather, and our very good friend Carly Varner Jodry. They have a duo called Harmony Girls, and they're going to do a Tom song as well. So we're going to have a little more music than we usually would. And we're going to have lots of stories. So Duncan Fremlin, as I mentioned, Duncan used to be a folk singer, played guitar, and then he picked up the banjo when he was 27, and he started a bluegrass band, I guess you'd call it, the Whiskey Jack. They were regulars on the Tommy Hunter show. They toured and recorded with Stompin' Tom, and they now continue to do a show called Stories and Songs of Stompin' Tom. And as I mentioned, Duncan wrote a book. There it is. I was going to put up the picture of the book, but I don't need to do the picture because I've got the actual book right here. I guess I could show you the picture too, but there you go. That's it. My Good Times with Stompin' Tom, and there's Duncan and Tom right on the cover together. So I'll get rid of that now. And so Duncan, he's one of the first people I talked to when I started researching the book. And he was one of the most open. One of the challenges in writing a biography, I've discovered, is a number of people who won't talk to you. A lot of people who were close. I wrote a biography of Rita McNeil and one about Stompin' Tom. And a lot of people, either they're scared to be too honest because they don't want to say anything that might offend somebody, or they just say no outright. But I do find with Stompin' Tom over the last couple of years since the book came out, people are, telling stories that hadn't really been told before. And one of those people is a man named Gate Lapine. And Gate, Duncan has been spending a lot of time with Gate lately. Gate's now 83 years old, and he's the man, if you know the Stompin' Tom story, he was responsible for giving Tom his big break at the Maple Leaf Hotel back in 1964. And I'm going to read you a little tiny bit from the book about that. But Gate was working at the bar that night when Tom came in, and up till then, Tom had been hitchhiking across the country and jumping on trains and jumping off and singing when he could or whatever. And he was in pretty rough shape by the time he got to this bar, the Maple Leaf Tavern, Maple Leaf Hotel in Timmins, Ontario in 1964. But Gate Lapine saw something special in him. Gate is now 83 and he's written his own life story. And a big part of it involves Tom because they wrote a number of songs together. And he's entrusted Duncan to help share that story. So Duncan's going to share some of that tonight, some stuff we haven't heard before. I actually tried to track Gate down when I was writing the book and I couldn't get him. But I did find some interviews with him and stuff. So I'm going to read you a little bit just to give you an idea who Gate is. And then Duncan's going to talk about him later in the hour. Not right off the top. I'm going to make you wait, so you got to stay with me. So Tom had been going from town to town. He ended up wherever he could get a ride. Somebody said I'm going to Timmins. He'd say I'm going to Timmins. So he jumped in the car. He ended up in Timmins one night. Gate Lapine, a bartender at the Maple Leaf Hotel, told CBC Radio that Tom came in asking for directions to the Salvation Army after having been thrown out of another bar. Lapine said, "They threw him out. They thought he was a bum, and they threw him in the street." Tom seemed to verify this version of the story in an interview with Peter Zosky. "I got tossed out of a couple joints before I hit the Maple Leaf. Nobody knows about that, but that's a fact." Gate Lapine, speaking on the radio almost 50 years after the fact, seemed to have a fairly clear memory of the night, and his description of it sounds like something straight out of a movie. He set the picture. It's a cold night, half rain, half snow, and this stranger walks in with a guitar, lanky looking. He went on to say that Tom chose the bar because of its name. Gate told CBC that Tom said, "The only thing that drew me in here is this hotel is called the Maple Leaf." Gate explained, and the Maple Leaf flashing kind of did something to him. There's a maple leaf flashing in the window. It's very strange, He walked in because of that maple leaf. Tom's love of Canada may well have guided him to the bar that would change his life. Regardless of how exactly Tom ended up at the Maple Leaf, what is generally agreed upon is that he asked for a beer and discovered he was 5 cents short. Gate threw in the nickel and gave Tom the beer. He offered him another drink if he would take out his guitar and sing a song or two. Gate told the radio interviewer that Tom pulled out an old beat-up guitar and there was a shirt around the neck. That was his spare shirt. He had a shaving kit, and that was all he had to his name, and a pair of socks in there. That was it. Tom sang "Pick Me Up on Your Way Down." He told Gate he had memorized over 2,000 songs. Gate asked Tom to sing Hank Snow's hit, "I've Been Everywhere," knowing it was a challenging song to sing. Tom not only knew the song and sang it well, but he impressed Gate by changing the lyrics to include the names of Canadian towns. Gate gave Tom another beer and told him to wait while he went to speak with the owner, Pete Coates. Gate said to Coates, "I got a character in there. Just blew into town. He's singing songs and his voice is pretty gravelly, but there's something about him." Tom had been waiting years for someone to recognize that he had something special to offer. Gate recognized it. So that's who Gate is in Tom's life. And they did write songs together for years. And so Duncan's going to talk to you about that. One little side note, the Maple Leaf Hotel is where Shania Twain also got her start in Timmins, Ontario, years later. And Gate and Tom would go on to write a number of songs together, including "Long Gone to the Yukon," the title track of one of Tom's albums, and "Hey, Hey, Loretta." And Tom's wife's favorite song of Tom's was "Mrs. Blue Guitar." I believe I read that somewhere anyway, and it was co-written by Gate. Anyway, he's 83 years old and he's got a story, and Duncan's going to help share some of that story. So I'm going to bring Duncan on, and then, okay, here we go. Duncan, hello. Hello, Duncan.
Can you hear me, Charlie?
I can hear you. Can you hear? Yes, I can. Can you hear me? You're cutting out now.
Something's not working. I'm not hearing you.
Oh, okay. The internet's cutting out a little bit. Let me just double check here. I do have other guests. I could bring them on and see if they're having the same problem. It looks like the microphone's working. So were you hearing me at all when I was talking earlier? Off the top of the show? Nope, I'm guessing not.
Can you hear me? I'm still not hearing you, Charlie.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, I'm going to take you out and I'm going to bring in Harmony Girls. I'll see if they can hear me, and then we'll see what the issue is. Okay, so I'm just going to take you out of here for a second, Duncan. I'll remove you. Okay, Harmony Girls. You're sitting by ready to sing, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
Hi, that's the Harmony Girls. That's my partner Heather on the left and our good friend Carly Varner-Jodry. They sing and play together. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, and you're hearing me through the phone, through the speaker?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure why Duncan's not hearing us, but hopefully we can get that sorted. So, okay, this is a sneak peek. How are you guys doing? Are you practicing?
Yes. Well,
We're in
quietly though, because we don't
Okay.
disturb your broadcast in the kitchen.
We're in the same house. I'm in the kitchen. She's in the living room. Anyway, so lots of people are making some great comments, which is wonderful. People said they can hear me out there. So I'm going to take you guys out. Just stand by. I'm going to talk to Duncan for a minute. And if Duncan, we can't get that sorted, you're going to be up next. Okay?
Okay,
Here we go.
ready.
We're going to try Duncan again. Okay. Here we go. Any luck now, Duncan? Now I can't hear you. Just so the audience knows, we actually tested this. We meet at 1:45 to test.
How about
and it was
that?
all working. There, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
So how about that? Yeah, no, now it's fine.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, I was just saying that we test this kind of thing. Hello, Duncan. How are you doing tonight? I've lost your sound again. I don't understand.
I love technology.
I can hear a word every now and then you leave me again. What I can do, I could sort of set up what we were going to do with the Harmony Girls, and I could do that, and then we'll come back to you. If you can have a look around and see maybe what's going on. Because it was working like 7:45, so it's probably not a big issue. And you were there for a second, so. I'm just going to take you out, Duncan, and so one of the things I wanted to talk about with Duncan was that when I interviewed Duncan for the book, he said to me, I said, is there anything, if you if you were going to sum up your thoughts about Stompin' Tom, can you give me something? And I didn't end up using this in the book. I used a lot of other stuff Tom said. But Duncan said to me, I've often tried to imagine the legend of Stompin' Tom. I think his song catalog will hold up very well, better than most of them. As Tom's songs get interpreted and explored, the more I appreciate the genius. That might surprise people in the years to come. And one of the things that I discovered as I worked on this book, because I didn't know a lot about Tom before I started the book, was he was what a good songwriter he was. Because I know all you watching, you're Tom fans, and you love Tom and you love his voice. But there are people who think a lot of the songs sound the same, or they're not crazy about his voice. And I think they're cutting. I don't think they're giving him his fair due. I think if you actually really pay attention to the songs, I think there's a lot of different. He's got a lot of variety there. He has a lot of funny songs, but he has serious historical songs. He's got some love songs. And when I do readings, I'll get asked to do readings of my book. And this started when I wrote my read a book. I didn't like just going and doing a reading on my own. So I'd get my partner, Heather, to come along and sing because she's a musician. So I'd say, learn some Rita songs. And she'd come along and she'd sing and I'd do a reading from the book. And we did the same thing with Stompin' Tom. So she started to learn some Stompin' Tom and really liked them. And she has this duo called Harmony Girls. And they decided they were going to learn a song or two of Tom. So I'm going to bring in the Harmony Girls now, and they're going to do a song for you. And it's one of Tom's love songs. There we are. Hello, Harmony Girls.
Hi there.
One of the things I love about hearing you guys do this song, and this isn't it's not a dig at Tom in any way, is that you would never guess it was a Stompin' Tom song.
No, I think it's really quite sweet. And yeah, it's definitely... When it's not Tom doing the voice, and not that there's anything against Tom, he's got like his style and that's his thing. But when you hear other people do his work, it really gives you a whole nother level to some of the, especially the words and the lyrics and stuff that he wrote. I think those are particularly...
Yeah, it highlights just the versatility in his music when you hear different interpretations of it and that sort of thing. And this, I think, is a gorgeous love song. It's a love song about two geese, which, sounds goofy, but it's actually very sweet. I think, Heather, when you were learning it, you cried once or twice, didn't you?
I did. When I first started learning it, I was like, oh, this is so touching. Like, it gave me a little verklempt,
Okay, and Carly, thank you so much for dropping by. Carly's a friend of ours, and her and Heather sing together a lot. And yeah, so I asked them to learn this song for us for tonight. So here we go. Here's Heather and Carly, also known as Harmony Girls, and they're going to sing a Stompin' Tom song called Little Wawa.
Okay, here we go. Ready? Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4. Little Wawa, little Wawa, little Wawa was a goose who from the southland flew in a bee-shaped flock of wild geese with her lover gander goo, her lover gander goo. They flew across North Michigan to see the sights below, 'cause they were on their honeymoon to North Ontario, to North Ontario. Honk, honk, said little Wawa, honk, honk, my gander goo. In goose talk that means I love you and I always will be true, always will be true. Little Wawa, little Wawa. The night was fast approaching in a deadly hissing sound. 'Twas an arrow from a dreadful bow and Gander Goo shot down. Gander Goo fell down. The wild geese kept on flying, but Wawa would not go. She stayed to find her lover in the bushland far below, the bushland far below. Honk, honk, said little Wawa, honk, honk, my gander goo. In goose talk that means I love you and I always will be true, always will be true. Little Wawa, little Wawa. The goose that died of heartbreak, a legend she became. And now she'll live forever in a town that bears her name, a town that bears her name. So you should see her statue out on Highway 17. You'll know that you're in Wawa and her love song you will sing, her love song you will sing. Honk, honk, said little Wawa, honk, honk, my gander goo. In goose talk that means I love you and I always will be true, I always will be true. Honk, honk, said little Wawa, honk, honk, my gander goo. In goose talk that means I love you and I always will be true, always will be true. Little Wawa, little Wawa, little Wawa.
Hey, nice job. Oh, wait, sorry. I gotta make it wider so I can see both of you. Nice job, ladies. Thank you so much. Thanks for doing that for us. And people are making nice. Nick, your husband, Carly, said, sounds great, ladies.
Thanks, Dave.
Anyway, I just wanted to say to all the people anyway, okay, I'm going to let you ladies go. Thanks so much for doing that song. I think that's a gorgeous version of the song.
Charlie.
Okay, you guys got to learn more Stompin' Tom.
Okay, we will.
Okay, bye. Thanks as well for the comments. I will go through the comments and after the show. I try. It gets distracting because I start answering them and then I forget to do the show part. So listen, it looks like Duncan is still trying but not getting sound. So I can keep talking forever. I can go an hour all by myself. For those of you who might be interested, I actually, Heather and I do a show called The Charlie and Heather Show. You can find it on Facebook if you search for The Charlie and Heather Show. We started doing it at COVID, mostly to entertain family and friends. I tell funny stories from my life and Heather sings. We do it from in the living room there by the piano. So anyway, when this series is over, we're on Sunday nights. Anyway, you can check us out on Facebook. So we're going to try Duncan again. Let's see what we got here. Mr. Duncan, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, Charlie. I can't hear you. I'm not hearing. In and out. I get some of it, but not much.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
I can hear you really well, so I can't do sign language. I don't know why I'm trying to point. I'm like, anyway. Okay. Well, do you know what? We'll do some other stuff then. I'm sorry about this, Duncan. I'll try you again later, maybe. Okay, so I'm going to remove Duncan. There we go. So what I wanted to talk about with Duncan was one of the things that with Tom's songs when Whiskey Jack performs their show, they do something, the stories and songs of Stompin' Tom, and Duncan tells stories, but they also do a number of Tom songs, but they sort of interpret them. So there's certainly that's going on with Tom's songs since he passed away in the last 7 years. But as well, there are people that are doing tribute shows, and people that, and I think, hopefully Chad, I'm going to give you a heads up. I'm going to go to you early. But there are people who are doing tributes to Tom where they try to sound a little more like Tom would. And Ta Connors, who is Tom's son, and he didn't grow up with him, but they did connect. They connected in over the course of their lives, and later in life spent more time together. And Ta actually tours and does the songs of his father and sounds a lot like him. But as well, the Stompin' Tom Center, I'm going to show you some, for those of you who maybe have never been there, this is the Stompin' Tom Center in Skinner's Pond, PEI. That was opening day. I was there for opening day, and that was the lineup. And then when you went inside, I'm just going to leave my picture in the background. I could take me out, but oh, there you go. Okay. And when you go inside, there's gold records, and in different places there are booths and stuff. And the center is on Stompin' Tom Road. You can see the center there in the background. This, for those of you who've never made it to Skinner's Pond, I thought I'd show you a little bit about the center. That's the schoolhouse where Tom actually went to school, and it's all been renovated inside. It's got the little old desks and the potbelly stove and that sort of thing. And this is the house, all on this. It's all in the same area, on this same big property, and that's where the Aylwards lived, who adopted Tom when he went to PEI. And so he grew up in that house. And so I think in my book, I say something, I'm going to take this out now. In the book near the end, Tom was very sad. He had been taken from his mother at the age of 8 and put in a foster home. And his life was a little bit of a challenge from then on. And when he went to PEI, he would cry himself to sleep every night, missing his mother. And I wrote in the book, I can just imagine if Tom could look out the bedroom window there and see into the future and see the Stompin' Tom Connors Center, maybe that would have helped him get through some of those long, sad nights. But anyway, at the Stompin' Tom Center, they also do dinner theater that tell the story of Tom's life. I think they've got a couple different ones now. And the man who plays Tom in those shows is a PEI-based singer-songwriter, and his name is Chad Matthews. And Chad is with me here tonight. So I'm going to bring Chad on. Chad, there you are.
Hey, Charlie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, sir. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. We've talked, but now now it feels like we're actually meeting because we wrote earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I guess this is the new meeting. This is the new meeting.
Yeah, this is the 2020 version of meeting someone.
Yeah. Exactly.
So Chad, when I was there opening day of the center, so they hadn't started doing dinner theater and stuff, and I haven't been back since. So that was 3 years ago. So there's a couple different shows, aren't there? Is that right?
Yeah, there was 3 shows written. She's a great writer. Erin Keefe Dunn, who wrote all the 3 scripts for the dinner theater. Super talented writer, and come up with a lot of history, a lot of good knowledge about Tom and his life, and it's been really good. Every show basically sold out in the last 3 years. Last year we did 40, I think it was 44 sold out shows. And it's amazing to see the people's faces when they leave, and some leave crying, some leave say, thanks for bringing back Tom, and for that little bit to take them away from maybe their troubles for a bit. And it's really humbling, and it's really amazing to see the look on faces and people so happy.
I imagine by this, if it can come back next summer, fingers crossed, people are going to be so happy. People are looking for entertainment. I know I produce a lot and direct and write and act, and I just can't wait to say, hey, we're back and be in front of a crowd again.
I know. And hopefully it'll pass this pandemic and get back to the norm. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, so there were 3 different shows. They were all about Tom's life, all 3 of them?
Yeah, they were. The first one was like the ghost of Stompin' Tom.
Okay.
Yeah, like he comes back to these 3 kids, and they can see him, but the teacher can't see him, and it's well put together, right? And
wow.
Yeah, it was really. And last year it was about. She touched about Tom going to see an old. Man in the hospital had a little touch of dementia, and he'd see Tom and then in his mind, and she's really she really has a grasp of writing, Aaron Keefe. So
Oh,
yeah,
wonderful.
it's really
So,
good.
and now you're a singer-songwriter. How did you end up getting to, how did you end up getting to play Tom?
Well, Stompin' Tom's music was the music I kind of grew up learning when I started picking guitar. I started playing about 14 years old. My mom bought an old used guitar at a yard sale, and I said, you know what, I'm going to learn this thing. So I self-taught myself, and I learned to play some piano and some bass and some mandolin and some piano. So
Wow.
Self-taught, and yeah, so I got a call from a good friend of mine, Paul Shea, who was driving down the road. They approached him to do a dinner theater show, and he was thinking to himself, if we do this, who could we get as Tom? And uh, an artist by the name of Chad Brownlee was on the radio playing a song. He's Canadian.
Yeah.
And Paul said, Chad Matthews, maybe we'll give him a call, see if he would do it. Because he knew I did a little bit of Tom songs. And I said, yeah, I guess I'll give it a try. And it just seemed to take off from that. I mean, the opportunities, a couple years ago, John McDermott was in the audience, and he heard it, and he flew me up to Toronto, and I played a week with him at a venue, and with Paul Langlois, the Tragically Hip. I got to share the stage with them, and
wow.
it was an amazing thing. And actually, Susan Rogers put a pitch out there just last year.
Yeah.
Film Board Canada, a bunch of entries, and her entry got about a story about myself playing Tom and my own life story, which is we're going to do some filming now whenever hopefully in the new year. So it's
Wow.
been doors have been opening, and I'm happy with the way things are going with life and with everything. Yeah.
Great. Well, why don't you do what? Why don't you do a Stompin' Tom song for us? Let's hear you
Sure.
sing some Stompin' Tom, Chad.
Sure.
That's all great. I look forward to seeing one of those shows once things get going again.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, I'm going to put you on full screen. There you go.
Oh, there we
Take
are.
it away.
Well, the girls are at the bingo and the boys are getting stiggle. They think no more of Mako, a Sudbury Saturday night. And the glasses they'll twinkle when their eyes begin to twinkle. They think no more of Mako, a Sudbury Saturday night. With Irish Jim O'Connell here and Scotty Jack McDonald, there's Humphrey Frederick Herschel getting tight, and we're all right. There's Happy German Fritzy, the Frenchie getting tipsy, and even Joe the Gypsy knows she's Saturday tonight. Yeah, when Marianne and Mabel come to join us at the table and tell us how the bingo went tonight, we had a good fight. And if they won the money, they'll be laughing up the honey pies, 'cause everything is funny for St. Saturday tonight. Yeah, the girls are at the bingo and the boys are getting stiggle. They think no more of Mako, a Sudbury Saturday night. And the glasses they'll twinkle when their eyes begin to twinkle. They think no more of Mako, a Sudbury Saturday night. Yeah, the girls are at the bingo and the boys are getting stiggle. They think no more of Mako, a Sudbury Saturday night. And the glasses they'll twinkle when their eyes begin to twinkle. They think no more of Mako, a Sudbury Saturday night. They think no more of Mako on a Sudbury Saturday night.
That's great. Thank you so much. We have a comment, of course. He sounds like Tom. I bet you hear that a lot.
I do hear that a bit, yeah.
No, that's great. Good job. You sent me a couple pictures. You also, in this picture, you look like Tom. That's you on stage in one of the shows, I assume.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And here you are on stage with Bud the Spud. I'm guessing the dancing potato.
Yeah, that was at the. That's actually my son in there.
Oh, is it? Oh,
that's the show. One of the two shows we did at the Harbourfront Theatre in Summerside back a couple years ago, and yeah, it was a great show. We sold out the first show we sold out in 9 days, I think 600 seats or something, and the second show was something the same. And actually, I keep in touch with Tom Jr. a bit, Tom's son, Tom Jr. And once a month or so, or every so often. And they gave me he wants me to maybe do a maritime tour whenever things kind of straighten up. So I think I think I might get the band together and do maybe a maritime tour.
That's great. I was going to show this picture because this is you with that's Tom's widow, Lena, and Tom Jr.
Yeah, that was at the center. I believe that was a couple of years ago. They were home. I think it was July. I think it was Canada Day actually. And so they're great. They're great people and friendly, and really, I'm really honored to know them and to keep in touch with them.
Now, is it nerve-wracking for you to play Tom in front of them? Was that hard?
That's a little. Yeah, that's a little.
I'd be stressed about that.
That was a little trickier, but poor Lena, I can still remember her smiling and wiping away a tear or two there during the night. So I mean, that was really nice.
Wonderful. Okay, so why don't I get you to do another Tom song, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk a little bit about your music. And Duncan says he can hear me now, so I'm going to finish with you, and then I'll go do what I was going to do with Duncan. We'll just do it at the end of the show. So let's have one. You want to do one more Tom song for us?
Sure, I will, Charlie. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chad.
You're welcome. I like Tom's music because they do tell stories, and here's one that tells a story. Something called My Hockey Mom. I was young, I do recall, I'd go to school in the early fall, and on the days when there was no school, I'd learn to play by different rules. Get out of that bed, you sleepyhead, my hockey mom would say. Grab your skates and don't be late, there's a hockey game today. And poor old Eddie's feeling bad because he could not come. He had to go to work, and so I had to take my orders from my hockey mom. My hockey mom, she was my chum, my hockey mom. Then we drove to the rink in town. I'd hit that ice by falling down. Then I'd score for the other team. You could hear my mom stand up and scream. Get off that ice, I told you twice to shoot the other way. And every year she bit my ear until I learned to play. And then my stick got really quick and the puck to me would come. Each time I scored, I knew for sure where the loudest cheer was from. My hockey mom, my hockey mom, my day'll come, my hockey mom. Then one day, a stranger came from far away, and he took my name, headed for the NHL. I came to me, and Mom came to yell. Get on that puck and stir things up and show some winning pride. And every time I'd hear that line, I'd slap that puck inside. And here comes Dad, all Mr. Glad, he knew my night would come. We're all lined up for the Stanley Cup and the tears are rolling from my hockey mom. My hockey mom, my day was come. My hockey mom, my hockey mom. forever young, my hockey bum.
That's great. That really sounded like Tom. I thought that that's so good. Yeah, and I love that everybody knows the hockey song, but that one's not as well known. But it's a fun song.
It is a fun song. It has a good story to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's funny that one of the next questions, not questions, I was going to talk about because I know the answer. But we had a comment. Does Chad Matthews have a CD?
Oh,
yes,
he
does.
I do. I do. I do have a CD. I made my very first CD. I finished it a couple of months ago. It's a gospel CD actually, and it's called "Here I Am, Lord." Yeah, and I have 12 songs on it. Really, the traditional gospel songs. People who've bought it seem to really enjoy it, and I'm so thankful that I kind of went gospel for the first CD, just because of the times, and I think people really want to hear some uplifting, maybe peaceful music nowadays.
I think you're probably right. I think, people can use anything to soothe the soul these days. Yeah. It's a little bit rough right now. Yeah, so if people are looking to buy it, I'm going to put a little ticker across the bottom. They can find you on Facebook. So if they search for Chad Matthews on Facebook, and it's facebook.com, chadmatthews.568, chad.matthews.568. But if they search for you on Facebook, they can find you there and message you, I assume, and you can let them know how to get a CD.
Sure, okay. Yeah, they're for sale all across PEI, right down to Charlottetown. And I even sold a couple in the US so far. So
wow.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. Now, Chad, are there any YouTube videos if people want to search for you in performance? Do you have any videos on YouTube?
There's a couple I believe I have from the Harbourfront Theatre that okay. I put on there a couple years back. But yeah, of Tom playing Tom, and just look me up. I like you. I like Facebook for posting what's coming up and all that. So yeah.
So go follow him on Facebook. That's how I found him. I've been reading about you for a while because I've been researching Tom for years now. And so when you started doing the dinner theater, I kept hearing about you, and then I saw you were doing a tribute show, and I was like, I'd like to talk to him someday. And then I finally messaged you, and here we are.
Yes, and I'm glad you did, and it's great, and you have a great thing going here, and all the best to you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Okay, thanks. I really appreciate you joining us, Chad, and you and I will stay in touch for sure, and hopefully some people get in touch with you and get some CDs from you.
Yes, definitely. Be great.
Okay. Thanks. Good night. Bye-bye. That was so wonderful. I think I cut him off a little soon. But okay, I think Duncan's working now. So that's what we're going to... And again, I apologize that I can't... somebody wrote the gospel CD... The gospel CD is beautiful. I have it on repeat. So just so you know. And then Alan Dalton wants me to say hi to Duncan. And it says, if you can say hi to Duncan, Alan, and Amanda, wish him and the Whiskey Jack and families a great Christmas. So let's see if I can bring him in. We're going to see if he can hear me. Duncan Fremlin. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
You cannot. I can.
Yeah, wow, fantastic. And a big hi to Alan, by the way, and his family. That's great. Thanks, thanks, Alan.
And I apologize that I can't read all the comments, guys, but I will look at them later. So I know I say that a lot, but I feel bad because I want to respond to everybody, but I got to stay a little focused. So the way these shows work is, believe it or not, I try to make it look spontaneous, but I have a script I follow, and it sort of follows a routine. And so there were things I was going to talk to you about that, maybe we'll just rearrange a little. But there were two things I was going to talk about before we talked about Gate, and we'll just touch on them briefly. Sure. But one of them was just in terms of keeping the legacy of Tom alive. You, I don't know if I can say more than anyone, but certainly you're up there in terms of keeping Tom's legacy alive. And it started with a birthday celebration, right? Like that, because we didn't talk about that last time. So how did that come about that you did a birthday celebration after Tom passed away, and that led to your show? Is that right? Or you tell us the story.
Yeah, well, let me back up a little bit and say that I'm keeping the legacy of his music alive more than Chad is doing more for Tom, Stompin' Tom, the character. I think my focus has always been the songs, the music. And so I don't, like in my shows, none of us, we don't get up and we don't look like Tom. We don't sound like Tom, but we take the music, we take the songs, and we Whiskey Jack played with Tom for a long time, so we kind of made these songs our own. And as I've said, maybe in the last interview, that I think over time, over the decades, it'll be the songs that survive more than the character. And I think there'll be more interpretations of these songs, and a whole new appreciation for not just the lyrics, but just the melodies. And so I think I sometimes think that there's three that there's three Toms. There's Tom Charles Connors, the guy that before Stompin' Tom.
Yeah.
There's Stompin' Tom, and then there's the character like Chad's playing in the theater in Skinner's Pond. So it's almost like there are three different characters, at least in the eyes of some of the audience. So
yeah,
but go ahead.
No, I was just going to say what you said was what I was hoping you would say, which would have led me right into a performance of the Harmony Girls doing an interpretation of a Tom song. I don't know if you got to hear them, but you would never have guessed it was a Stompin' Tom song.
Well, that particular song, it's been interpreted. We did it. That's one of the first ones we recorded back in 2014 when we started this tour. But also, if you get on YouTube, on just maybe Google or get on YouTube and type in Banjo Dunk, there is a version by J.P. Cormier on there that he did. I think it would have been Tom's 80th birthday celebration at Hughes Room in Toronto. We had Gordon Lightfoot on that show, and JP does a version. I've had classical music friends who came to the show, Charlie. These are people these are not country music fans. These are not folk music fans. These are classical music fans. They told me that there was a tear in their eye. It's a powerful performance, and it says something about that song. It's a love song about a bloody goose, for Christ's sakes. How can you shed a tear over a love song for a bloody goose?
It's funny that you mentioned that video, because it was during my research, I found that video of JP doing that song, and I often write in the middle of the night. So in the morning when when Heather woke up, I was like, oh my God, you got to listen to this song. Listen to JP Cormier do this Stompin' Tom song. You guys would sound great doing this. And that's how they came. It was because of JP that they discovered it. And I think that hopefully that will be the legacy of Tom's music, that will continue to happen, that people will hear it in new and different ways. And, if you want to party, certainly put on the Stompin' Tom CD and stomp along. Or, if you want that experience, go see Todd Connors or go to the dinner theaters or see Chat, and sort of get a recreation of that experience. But I think it's also valuable that people are doing their own interpretations of this stuff. So,
well, the show that catapulted my band into this tour back in 2014 was in a CD bar in Toronto, one that Tom would have approved of. It had a pool table, it had a dance floor. It was seedy, the beer was overpriced, and the food was awful. So it was a perfect send-off. And I had invited, Tom used to invite Whiskey Jack and me up to the house for the birthday parties, and because he liked to have a band to play. So I bring the band up and we play the birthday parties. So when he died, I realized that, of course, we weren't going to get the call. So I said, well, I'm going to host my own. And so that February after he died, I organized this thing, and I put out the word that I was going to do this. I tell this story in my book, and the phone rang off the hook. I had Paul Langlois from Tragically Hip. I had Melanie Doan and her two kids were there. I had Mickey Andrews, who you and I should probably talk about him a little bit later. But Mickey Andrews and Mary McIntyre came. They're the real deal if you want to talk Stompin' Tom music. These two. So it was a night, really quite an amazing night. And it was because of that show that I'm still playing this music today, because we had celebrities in the audience that started calling me and saying, would you bring the show to my theater, So, that's how this whole thing happened. But it was also broadcast on a local radio station, the whole show. In fact, I think I have a recording of it somewhere. But what was interesting, just to get back to the music thing, is that you had all these different people. And this has happened in probably communities across the country where they have a Stompin' Tom tribute night. I know they do it for Gord, they do it for the Hip, they do it for other acts. But when they do it for Tom, so you get like 15 different performers from, let's say, Moose Jaw, Calgary area. They'll come into a club, they'll come into a theater, and each entertainer will choose a song, and they will do it in their own way. I think that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That to me, that has, well, first of all, it creates a broader appeal. Tom's audience, it's old and small compared to what it was 20 years ago. And our audience is like, this damn pandemic better end sooner. I'm not going to have any audience left.
Come on, you're hoping man. They're still there when you're a year from now. I know.
So I'm really hoping that that the young people will embrace this music, and so I think you need younger performers to interpret the songs in order for them to, because Tom's versions, I don't think, frankly, are gonna do it.
Yeah.
They're not, with all due respect, compared to the production that these kids are used to, they're not very good at all. So
yeah. Tom wasn't as concerned with production values, certainly, as people are nowadays. No, not in any way. No. So Duncan, I'm going to actually give away a couple of my books, and then and then I want to talk to you some more. So I'm just going to go and I'm going to read.
I'll do that too, Charlie.
You want to do okay?
Yeah.
Can you come up with a trivia question, or do you want me to come up with one for your book too?
Well, let me think about it, but just
you think about it. Okay, I'm going to do a couple. Okay, I'm going to go full screen here for a sec. So, in order to win the book, you have to comment here below. So get your fingers ready. There's 2 questions. One of them might be a little hard. The first one's not that hard if you were paying attention to the show. So whoever types it first. So it's mostly about who's the fastest typist. And the question is: name the hotel in Timmins where Stompin' Tom got his break. I was talking about it a minute ago, where Gate Lapine discovered him and gave him his first big break. What was the name of that hotel? So the first person to type that in is going to win a copy of the book, and I'll message you and get your address, and we'll get that book out to you. I do have a question here. Someone said, the Maple Leaf Hotel. There we are. Garland Pellerin. We have a winner. Garland, you won the book. And I'll send you a message, and we'll connect so I can get your mailing address, and I'll get it sent off to you. Sorry, Donna. Donna, you're also right, but Garland got it first. And we had a quick question here before I ask the second trivia question. Mac Finney said, I've always wondered if Tom started with a new piece of plywood for each concert. My understanding is, I think in the old days he might have done that, but it would usually last 2 or 3 shows, and I think as he got older, it lasted longer and longer. So actually, Duncan's still here, so Duncan, is that the case? A sheet of plywood would last for a few shows, wouldn't it?
Well, at the end, it was he couldn't. He used to nail a cleat to the bottom of his boot, and so that there would be sawdust flying in the old days. When the boot was just and the foot was coming down hard and heavy. I don't know if he actually went through a board every night, but certainly on the first tour that I was on in 1990, he went through, I don't know, a few. But he used a really 1/8-inch unfinished plywood. So fairly easy to, well, not easy. It's not easy.
And then a nail in the heel of his boot helped too.
Yeah. So that helped it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for helping to answer that. Now, second, I'll go back to me here for a sec. So the second question is, Tom, one of Tom's favorite singers growing up, Tom loved country singers when he was a kid, and his childhood idol, he had a couple, but one of them was from Nova Scotia. Who was Tom's childhood idol? Country singer from Nova Scotia. He also liked Wilf Carter. Wilf Carter is not the answer I'm going for. Was Wilf from Nova Scotia? Wilf might have been from Nova Scotia. I might have ruined my question. Oh, shoot. There's 2 of them. Who was the other? I'll bring you on, Duncan. As soon as I said that, in my head, I was thinking Wilf was from New Brunswick.
Is it Port Milford, Nova Scotia?
Yeah. Okay, but there's another one. The other country singer from Nova Scotia that Tom idolized as a boy. Garland Pellerin says he knows, but he won't answer. Wilf Carter, I said not Wilf Carter, though. The other one. So there's 2 of them. So we got 2 country singers that Tom idolized, and whoever can answer the name of the other one, then Hank Snow. There you go. Hazel Coates got it. Hazel, you're getting a copy of the book.
One was a nice guy. One was a dick.
I've heard that. I've heard Hank Snow was awful.
Oh God.
Did you meet him?
No, I didn't meet him, but I spent a lot of time with Graham Townsend in 1993, and Graham knew him. In fact, toured with Tom and Wilf and Hank, so knew firsthand, what a prick he was, and so, but everybody loved Wilf, and obviously Tom mirrored his career after Wilf more than anybody.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I remember when I was reading his autobiography, he said that after having met Hank Snow, he thought, I don't want to be like him, and then he met Wilf Carter and thought, that's the kind of performer I want to be. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Hazel's got a copy. I'm going to get in touch with you, Hazel, and because the publisher is going to send that. Hazel lives here in Amherst as well. I think she sometimes travels and stuff, but I think she's here in Amherst right now. Anyway, the publisher will send you a copy. But Duncan, did you come up with a trivia question so people can win a copy of yours?
One's really hard. The diehard will know this, but in 1990, I was the road manager, and I had to carry a particular brand of Ontario Quebec beer when we crossed the Manitoba border, because you couldn't buy it west of Winnipeg. So I'm just wondering, is there anybody out there who knows what beer that is? He abandoned that beer shortly after that because it was a Molson product. I think Molson's pissed him off, so he stopped drinking this particular brand of beer. But if anybody knows what that brand is, I'll give them a book and maybe a couple of CDs. One of which is the CD that Tom recorded with Whiskey Jack in '92, I think it was, called Dr. Stompin' Tom, and that's features Tom and Whiskey Jack. So,
and is the answer Moosehead?
No, that came later. No,
the Moosehead was much, because I was thinking that. I thought, I don't think it's Moosehead. So, because we got 4 Moosehead answers.
No, so this is for the serious fan. I'll tell you, not many.
I'm surprised. I don't even know if I know that. I might have written it in the book and forgotten it. I'm not a beer drinker myself, so it's possible I wrote it somewhere and forgot.
So here's the second question.
Mike Dunlop. I just want to tell you, Mike, you just held up a CD, and Mike Dunlop, the guy who did the graphic design for it, is watching, and he just wrote,
"I
did." He wrote, "I did that CD." So there you go. Okay,
I love your hair, Mike. Steve pulled the. Oh yeah, you got to do something with that hair. Holy cow.
Okay, the beer, Duncan, is it Molson Golden?
It is. Who did
Molson
that?
Golden? We have a winner. It's Alan Dalton.
Oh, Alan. Okay. Well, geez, I don't know. What am I going to send you, Alan? I know. I've got something special I'll send you. I know you don't have this. You probably have all my CDs, but this, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'll stick it in the mail tomorrow, and I'll surprise you.
Okay, that's wonderful. So you'll get in touch with Alan. You know him, so I won't be the in between on that one. Mike Dunlop just responded to you and said,
"COVID hair."
Okay,
so the second question is: there was a fiddle player that we toured with in 1993, arguably the best fiddle player in the world at the time. And again, any Stompin' Tom fan should know who this is, because it was one of Tom's favorites, and this guy probably saved my job in Sackville, New Brunswick. But there's a story behind that too. But anyway, if there's anybody who knows who this is, he's late. It's the late person, but the greatest fiddle player maybe ever.
Okay, so we'll wait for. Is it Graham Townsend?
It is.
There you go. Janice Bird just won.
Okay.
You were talking about Graham earlier, and I thought maybe it was him. So I know a lot of people. JP is a really great fiddle player. I know he toured, but Graham is kind of another level. Okay, so Janice, I'll get in touch with you, get your address, and pass it on to Duncan. And who knows what Duncan will send you? It could be a book, could be a CD.
Oh, it'll be a surprise, but it'll be worth, God, I don't know, $50 or so.
Well, there we go.
So how much are you sending them, Charlie?
My book, it's worth $30, but I'm not actually sending it. The publisher is, so it don't cost me a thing. I might sign it. So anyway, so Duncan, we're almost, it's almost been an hour, believe it or not. I didn't even get to talk to you about all the things I wanted to talk to you about. Yeah. But one of the things I did want to touch base on, and I started the show with this and said we'll come back to it later in the hour, is Gate Lapine. And I just you have a blog, and actually I'll stick that up so people can look for it, because if you just search, well, there, I've got it as a ticker, but here, if you search the Duncan Fremlin blog, that's what I did. I just Googled that and I found it. That's
it's duncans.blog.com, Duncan with an S, duncans.blog.com. I just started, I've had a blog I started writing it back, I don't know, in the 2000s, and I used it for business and for music and for travel, that kind of thing. And then I abandoned it for a long time. But I've recently connected with the great Gate Lapine, and he and I have become very close. And he has given me his archives, his music, his manuscript, his poetry. This man is responsible. I'm going to come out on a limb here and say, if it wasn't for Gate Lapine, there wouldn't be a Stompin' Tom Connors. You probably won't read this in Tom's books because Tom wasn't big on giving credit where credit was due. But anybody who knows the backstory from Gate and I've also spent many hours on the phone with Mickey Andrews and I've just gotten to know Gate and seen the personal photographs and heard the stories. They met in 1964 when they were both in their mid-20s. Tom was a very insecure hobo traveling the roads looking for handouts, basically. Gate was the bartender who, the story is Tom went into one bar in Timmins, asking for a beer in exchange for a song. They kicked him out, told him to get out. A few minutes later, walks into the Maple Leaf Hotel, does the same thing. Asks Gate Lapine what a beer costs. He said 40 cents, and Tom only had 35. Legend has it. So he turns around to walk out, and Gate says, "Where are you going?" And because Tom had a guitar in his hand. Gate was a singer-songwriter himself. He's written 5,000 songs. He's an artist. He's a poet. So the legend is 14 months later, Tom is still playing the Maple Leaf Hotel. He's recorded his first CD or his first 45s. He's playing his own music publicly for the first time, and it's going over well. They're lining up around the block to hear it. The timing for this mid-1960s couldn't have been better. The country was just entering this, the Two Solitudes. I'm sure you read Hugh McLennan's Two Solitudes, Charlie, that classics book about the English and the French. And this was all just the Quiet Revolution was gaining steam. And here you have Gate Lapine from Madawaska, Quebec, moved to Timmins, and you have an English-Canadian Stompin' Tom Connors. They become the best of friends until they had a falling out in 2001. And Gate was there for every important. He was there for the wedding. He was there for the TV show. He revitalized Tom's career after the Timmins run a few years later when he was managing a hotel in Kirkland Lake. The story is just the two are merged. The two families are merged, but Canadians don't know just how important Gate Lapine is or has been. And the more I get into the poetry, published poet, the manuscript is fantastic. It should be published in its own right. And the songs, he's written 5,000 songs, Charlie.
Wow.
5,000 songs. And many of them recorded by Tom.
Yeah. If you look at the Stompin' Tom book, there's the Tom song book, 250 songs, and every few pages you'll see it's a song co-written with Gate Lapine. They wrote together a lot more than people realize, and it's interesting that at 83, Gate's wanting to tell his story now. So now one of the things that I do want to clarify, we had a comment, and I just want to read it to you because I think maybe somebody missed it. We had Ron Cunningham said, "I have to disagree with Duncan. My dad liked the music. I like the music. My kids like the music. The grandkids like the music." And I just want to be clear. I don't think you were saying that you didn't like Tom's music. You were just talking about the production values. They're very simple because sometimes it's just a voice and guitar. So that doesn't get a lot of, he was basically competing with Nashville, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver producers. These are world-class producers who spend their lives trying to make it sound right for the masses. Tom was not producing his songs for the masses. He was producing his songs for a specific audience. And the disconnect for me was here he was complaining that he wasn't getting more coverage, he wasn't getting airplay and everything, yet he wasn't giving the radio stations a product they could even play. So you can't have it both ways kind of thing. But I knew that's what you meant, that it's more about just the production values. If you think of music in the 60s, 70s, if you're talking Conway Twitty and Charlie Pride and those kind of country singers, there was a lot of stuff, whereas with Tom, it was often just him and his voice and guitar and, and some instruments, but still not that same kind of sound.
No, not sophisticated, yeah.
Yeah. Now, Gate and Tom wrote, I found this really interesting. You told me 15 songs that nobody's ever heard before.
Yeah. So this is when I was, I've been talking to Gate for a while, and his conversation, his phone calls are very long because he likes to talk and he likes to swear. So anyway, he one day just mentioned in passing, he said, I've got, he and Tom Tom used to call him and come up to the house because he'd get writer's block. Tom would get writer's block. He'd need inspiration. Gate was a good guy to, the two of them, they got going to, they energized each other. So he'd call Gate to come up. And so over the course of the years, even some of these going back right to the 1960s, Gate would leave and he'd have the song and it would be a Tom Gate song, but it wasn't one that Tom was going to record, or it wasn't one, for whatever reason, Gate left with these, and there were 15. So none of them have been published. None of them have been performed. None of them have been broadcast to anything other than Gate in his living room. And I spent some time with him back in the end of July in front of a microphone, and he recorded these for me. And then he gave me the lyrics, gave me the songs. And now I'm going, as I mentioned to you the other night, I'm going through each one and I'm woodshedding it, which is a term for just working the song. And, I'm trying to figure out, what's the best way to present this song. I don't have one that I can sing you tonight because this is going to be a year-long project, maybe even a 2-year-long project. But that's what I'm working on right now. And I know there's a couple of gems in there for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to hear what happens with you and Gate Lapine. I know you've got this 700-page autobiography and you want to do something with it, and you've got these 15 songs. And so I just thought people would be interested to know about that and know that there's more of the Stompin' Tom story coming out. They're going to hear a little bit more about the, from Gate's point of view, but also, maybe some new songs. So that's
the story I really wish would come out too. Another one is Mickey Andrews. Again, a bit of a genius in music, a great artist. I don't know if you knew this about Mickey, just a great artist, but what a musician. And boy, he was there when Tom started the Horseshoe Tavern, that gig at the Horseshoe. He was the band.
He's one of the best interviews I had for the book. Yeah. And if you pick, not to push my book, but I do talk a lot about, and Mickey talks about watching Tom develop the character of Stompin' Tom and watching him refine it. And so Tom showed up at the Horseshoe Tavern, for people who, most of you probably know this, and it was kind of Canada's Grand Ole Opry, basically, over all the big country acts went. And Tom went there in '69, and he ended up setting the record for the longest nights in a row, and it was a huge hit. And it really launched his career. It was from then on that he had a big career. And Mickey was there as the house band. And Mickey, it's fun, great talking to Mickey though, because he's like, yeah, we were there when Conway Twitty would drop in, and he said to me one day, he reminded me of Johnny Cash, because both of them, the way they talked, that was the way they sang. And I'm like, I'm talking to somebody who worked with and talked to Johnny Cash. He's got and he's from New Waterford, Cape Breton, I believe, and he's got all these amazing stories. Yeah. And he told me, and when he told me stuff that I hadn't heard from anybody else for the book, and he kept saying to me, I just want you to tell the truth, Charlie. I don't think there's been he said, I don't think there's been an honest book about Stompin' Tom, and I tried to. I hope I did. But Mickey was one of my favorite interviews.
Okay, well, that segues next into the end of the show, which is I wanted to ask you a poignant question that sort of speaks to something that you told me the other day. And you said, if I knew now what I knew then, when you first started this book, I wonder, is there a chapter that you would write today because you know way more now about Tom than you did 2 or 3 years ago. So is there a chapter you would write today that you would not have been able to write 2 or 3 years ago?
Just so the audience knows, Duncan said he wanted to interview me at the end of the show, so there we go. So one of the things I found interesting in writing biographies, and I ran into this with both the Rita and the Tom biography, was people were super cautious about what they would say. And the way I work these things, and you know, Duncan, because I did it with you, I will interview people, I put it on a digital recorder, so I have your words, and then when I decide which quotes I'm going to use, I send them off to you and go, are you still cool with this? Because sometimes in the moment people say things and then they decide they don't want it in there. I found people very guarded when I was trying to put the book together. And a lot of people just said no. For instance, well, I'm not supposed to say, but anyway, I talked to someone who's very, very close to Tom, who they had a falling out, and this person was like, don't even say you called me. So, and I ran into that a lot. But what's interesting is once the book comes out, everybody has a story for me. So now I'm hearing all kinds of stuff that I didn't hear before that might have colored the book. And it's interesting you ask that, because the book has come out in hardcover, but it's not out in softcover yet. And I was thinking, I should talk to the publisher and see if they want a revised, updated one. I don't know what those details would be, but I know J.P. Cormier, for instance, didn't want to be interviewed for the book, but he recently did an hour-long thing on his website where he talked about Stompin' Tom, and it's pretty explosive. There's a lot of stuff there.
Told the truth, Charlie.
Yeah, it's called "I Was Stomped" by Stompin' Tom, and but in the end he talks about how much he loved Tom, and they got, he had challenges, but he wouldn't tell me those things 2 years ago. But people will, a lot of times people won't tell me stuff when I'm writing the book, and even with Rita, after the book, I found out some stories that I didn't know before that would be great. On the other hand, I try, in order to get people to be as honest as possible, I'm very clear when I interview people about saying, we can talk whatever. If it's off the record, it's off the record. Like, you have my word. And, I think you know that. If you said to me something that you didn't want in the book, I wouldn't put it in there. So
You're never going to get a job with National Enquirer, man.
I know.
Never.
Luckily, that's not my goal. So I was trying to tell a story and trying to capture a side of somebody that maybe people don't know. So that's a really interesting question, because I do have more knowledge about Tom right now than I certainly did when I published the book. So,
name one thing.
Name one thing. People are more. I don't even know how to say it. That he was kind of the cranky side of Tom, because everybody talked about how he was kind of strict or whatever, but people are a little more open about the cranky and how unreasonable he was by times. And I hint at that in the book, but I don't know that I can write out and say it.
Right.
Would you say? Do you cover that in your book? Would you say?
Well, I just from my own personal, I experienced the crankiness. You forget he came within a smidgen of punching me in the nose, so I know
that's true.
I knew cranky.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one way, but what JP talked about on his webpage the other day, that was way more, way more honest in a way. I mean, the drunkenness was really hard to take sometimes. So here's a guy, he's supposedly your friend, and you want to go home, and he won't let you go, and he berates you, he belittles you, he puts you down, and mocks you for wanting to leave. You're a pussy or whatever. That kind of a conflict. I had a hard time with that, and even JP talks about that. You get fed up with having to be married to that damn CB all the time, and so that kind of thing.
But then what happens is there becomes this mythology built around Tom that isn't that quaint, that he wanted somebody to stay up with him till 5 a.m, as opposed to the reality of it was.
There's an underside to that was.
And I think that's it's the underside that people weren't as willing to talk about. So anyway, and he's a complicated man who, and again, the thing that I find fascinating is what he did for Canadian music in terms of the people who've been inspired to tell our own stories, and the way he, and there's all that, but then the human being, people were less willing to let me in on that side of him.
Well, I think we're both complicated, Charlie, you and me too. So.
We're all complicated. Somebody wrote to me today, I'm helping them with a project, and they said, "You're an angel." And I said, a little bit, there's some devil too. I try to balance it. So that's what we all go through in life.
We'd like to talk to Heather about that.
Yeah, she's off camera now. She's busy. Anyway, thank you, Duncan. Did you want to ask me anything else? You said you were going to interview me.
I thought that would lead to where it led to. So I thought that was the big question, because you get a second chance to spill your guts on this. So it's not often you get a chance to edit something that you've already published. So
yeah, and I'm not sure that I ever will, but I do know a little bit more stuff now that I could put in. So anyway, thank you for joining. I'm sorry we had those sound difficulties, but it was great chatting with you again. And okay, I'm going to let you go, Duncan. And if you want to stick around, that's all right. You and I will talk. We email, message. I'll message you, my friend. Okay, thanks for being here. I'm going to say good night to everybody. Goodbye. Thanks again, Duncan. Bye-bye. Okay, well, there we go. Now that was a show. So it was a little bit weird because it got a little out of order, and I don't know that I got to cover everything I wanted. But that's the end of Stompin' Tom Remembered, 6 episodes. And hopefully those of you who were big Stompin' Tom fans came away learning something new about Stompin' Tom. Maybe you want to read the book. Maybe you want to read Tom's book. Tom's books are also good. Tom has a book called Before the Fame, the first volume of his autobiography, and another book called Stompin' Tom Connors, The Connors Tone, and The Connors Tone. And Duncan has a book, My Good Times with Stompin' Tom. There's so many books you could read about Stompin' Tom. So I hope that you've been engaged. I do want to say that I have loved doing these interviews. It's been fun. I sort of learned that, it's something I really enjoy doing. And people have been very supportive, and I'm thinking about continuing, but not specifically Stompin' Tom, but I'm thinking maybe I'll do a series of there's a lot of interesting Canadians out there. I don't know that Mickey Andrews could appear on camera. I don't know what his tech capabilities are, but people like Mickey Andrews, who've played with Conway Twitty and Johnny Cash and been in the music industry for a number of years. And then there's also like a lot of well-known people, and I happen to be friends with a couple, and so I'm hoping that in the new year, please check out my Facebook. I probably won't put it on the Stompin' Tom page because it's not about Stompin' Tom, but I have another page, Charlie Reindress. It's on Facebook, not my personal page, the artist page. And I also, if you're interested, I have a website, charliereindress.com, and I post stuff there about the Charlie and Heather show. That's the other streaming show I do with my partner Heather, and it tells you where to get books and all that stuff. So I hope you'll check some of that out. And I'm not going away. I think I'm going to stick with this interviewing thing. I think so anyway. That's the plan. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in these 6 weeks or 1 week, whatever you happen to show up for. And I want to thank Danielle and Rebecca and Kara and Jim at Formac and Lindsay at Formac and Dan at Formac, everybody at Formac Publishing who made this possible, and they helped me get the books and get them out. I want to thank Arts Nova Scotia for sponsoring this series. Anthem Entertainment, Olay, I guess they're called. Olay is a branch of entertainment. They own the rights to Tom's music and stuff, and they were also supportive and helped advertise the show, so I want to thank them. I want to thank all my guests, all the people who were willing to come on the air. I had 2 people lined up for tonight who, part of the reason I wanted Duncan was they toured with Duncan and Tom in the 90s, and they were going to come on and share some never-before-told stories, the 3 of them, and I thought it'd be a great chat, and then the other 2 decided they didn't want to, again, as I said, they decided they didn't want to go public with stuff, so that I do run into that sometimes. So anyway, but my guests for tonight, Harmony Girls, Chad Matthews, Duncan Fremlin, everybody who's been a guest all along. And one of my favorite parts of writing biographies is getting to interview some really interesting people, and I'm glad I got to share those interviews with you over these 6 episodes. So check, if you haven't seen all of them, check them out on YouTube or check them out on the Stompin' Tom page. They're all there. And thanks again, and thanks for your lovely comments. People are saying some nice things, so thanks so much, and goodbye. Stay safe. I hope you have a happy holiday season if you're one to celebrate the holidays. And I realize with COVID it's a challenge, but hang in there. We'll get through, and next year we'll have a normal kind of Christmas. Let's hope. Okay. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.